Can we play with him, Master? He seems so unhappy. Let us help him smile. Please? Or at least let us carve one on his face. When he stops, screaming. Being undoubtedly the youngest of the Dark Gods, the demonic forces of Slaanesh still appear meagre compared to other legions of ruinous powers. However, the number of demons she who thirsts grows with every moment, and they cannot be taken lightly. Slaanesh's demons possess elements of their master's perverted and unnatural beauty, a beauty that equally repulses and elicits an inexplicable desire. Their very presence induces an emotional surge strong enough to tear apart a soul, while their seductive promises can enslave even the most resistant heart. The physical forms of demonic lieutenants are simultaneously seductive and monstrous. In their features, beauty and revulsion mingle to explode the soul of the onlooker with their monstrous duality. Daemonettes, known as the Maidens of Ecstasy, these feminine-looking lesser demons' seductive bodies are a startling contrast to their grotesque claws. In battle, Daemonettes are agile and skillful assassins, whose claws can tear opponents to shreds, and their beauty helps them lure mortal victims into their clutches. However, Daemonettes do not only engage in combat on foot. They are often seen mounted upon terrifyingly graceful demon beasts known as steeds of Slaanesh. These lithe demonic beasts are swift and resilient, and can track mortals by the scent of their desires. Such Daemonettes are called Seekers of Slaanesh and form the vanguard of the legions of the Dark Prince. A terrifying feature of the Daemonettes is that even in the most horrific, ferocious encounters, they smile in ecstasy, performing their lethal work, reveling in the waves of emotions emanating from their foes, and bestowing upon them a mix of torturously painful caresses and tender but deadly blows. Daemonettes can also harness the energies of the warp, casting their terrible and seductive spells. Daemonettes whisper dreams and nightmares to their victims, feeding their darkest desires with promises of glory and adoration. Especially susceptible to the magic of ecstasy are Chaos Space Marines. Many sorcerers and lords have summoned legions of Slaanesh's servants, mistakenly believing they would secure them a glorious victory, only to soon realize that in this battle they were but pawns, gladly sacrificed by the Prince of Pleasure. Daemonettes are the most numerous of Slaanesh's servants. They serve not only as assassins but also as courtiers and courtesans in his Palace of Pleasures. Often, they can be seen in the throne hall of the Dark Prince, where, lounging on silk pillows, they endlessly gossip, planning how to earn the favour of their whimsical and fickle master. As Slaanesh is prone to sudden mood swings, often when she's disappointed, she sends vast legions of Daemonettes to destroy everything he finds abhorrent and crude. In praise of their lord, Daemonettes often dance on blood-soaked ground, and dead bodies form a carpet under their clawed feet. Their sweet voices blend in joyful odes to Slaanesh as they kill and maim in the name of aesthetic agony and pleasure. They are extremely vindictive, and never miss an opportunity to deliver the final blow to an enemy before he can die of his wounds. Indeed, Daemonettes derive no greater pleasure than from playing with their prey. For example, they often lift an enemy's severed limb to show it to the shocked victim, or, using their demon speed, deliver dozens of blows with the severed body part of an adversary to savour the bloody agony of its owner. Every act of violence and mutilation is observed by the Daemonettes with piercing excitement, for each of them strives to outdo the other in the extravagance of death. By committing such horrific murders, they revel in the terror and despair, tasting the full spectrum of unrestrained emotions that fill the air. However, like all created by the Dark Prince, the captivating beauty of the Daemonettes is compensated by their deformity. Thus, one of the demon's arms usually mutates up to the elbow into a massive crab-like claw or another weapon, and their legs end in bird-like feet with 3 claws. The Slaanesh demons often possess unusually long, gripping tongues, and may display one or multiple sets of female humanoid breasts, marking a special favour of the Prince of Pleasure, who is a hermaphrodite. The androgynous allure of the Daemonettes is enhanced by a pervasive sense of seduction, strengthened by a strange musk that lingers around them like a light haze with a cloying scent. And yet, despite all the admiration their appearance commands, there is something about them that induces revulsion in anyone who sees them. Even though the Daemonettes possess hypnotic charm, the aura that cloaks their true forms, transforming them into tantalizing visions of perfection, their true appearance still repels and horrifies. Only the supernatural power of the Daemonettes makes them seem incredibly beautiful, and objects of desire in the eyes of mortals regardless of their race, gender or morals. However, more recent encounters between the Imperium and the Daemonettes have shown that the appearance of these Slaanesh demons has changed. They now resemble women with hair that twists and curls like tentacles. Instead of the previous claws into which the Daemonettes' arms had mutated, a new weapon has appeared that is scythe-shaped, and overall they seem much more attractive and seductive. So much so that there are tales of soldiers refusing to fight upon catching a fleeting glimpse of their enticing beauty. Seekers of Slaanesh. Within the dominions of Slaanesh in the realm of chaos, there lie hidden vast meadows of gold and silver, transitioning smoothly into hills and idyllic valleys. It is here that a numerous herd of steeds of Slaanesh roam, running unimpeded across the shimmering plains. They embody the free spirit of the Dark Prince, allowed to flutter and gallop as they please. Like birds, they migrate through the mystical pastures, changing their course in the blink of an eye. The steeds of Slaanesh are swift and powerful bipedal creatures with serpentine bodies moving on two long muscular legs. Their skin color shifts from soft blue to pastel purple and gentle ochre. Their heads are extremely narrow, not much larger than a slender muzzle, with eyes sparkling with the energies of the god who created them, and a tongue reaching several meters in length. The language of the steeds of Slaanesh allows them to taste the desires of mortals, and their advanced sensory organs help them detect fear, joy, and lust wafting through the air from a kilometer away. Occasionally a Daemonette, or even more rarely a mortal champion of chaos, sneaks into the magnificent pastures of Slaanesh to acquire such a steed for themselves. However, this is no easy task, as these beasts never tire and can run at tremendous speeds for eternity if needed, easily outpacing any pursuer. To succeed, the future rider must be cunning and exploit the creature's insatiable curiosity. Like all demons of Slaanesh, the steeds crave emotions and sensations, and they are easily intrigued by anything new or unusual. A cunning hunter might lure a steed with glittering jewels or a silver trinket, or set an ambush where they drink from rivers of exotic spirits or aromatic oils. If a Daemonette manages to approach a steed while it is distracted, she can use a chain of pure gold or silver to ensnare the demonic beast. However, even when fettered by chains, the steeds do not surrender so easily. Their clawed feet kick, and their tongues lash like whips as they attempt to throw off their rider. But Daemonettes have many methods to tame the beast, to quell its rage and make it obedient. Now, with her new mount secured, the Daemonette will go to war as a seeker of Slaanesh, one of the immortal hunters of the Dark Prince. These squadrons of demonic cavalry are commanded by Daemonette officers known as Heartseekers. The Seekers of Slaanesh form the vanguard of many of the Dark Prince's demonic legions and are the core of his legion of hunters. Steeds of Slaanesh are incredibly fast, their long, winding bodies undulating as they carry their riders on thin, bird-like legs toward the enemy. With their unnatural ability to track, there is little sense in running from a seeker, and only a few among their chosen prey have ever managed to escape. Despite their speed, the demons sometimes deliberately lag behind during the chase to prolong the terror of their victim, inflating the flame of false hope in her heart for a brief moment. However, when it comes time to reap the bloody harvest, the long, poison-coated tongues of the steeds lash out from their grotesque mouths to trap their victims, shuddering with delight during the feast of mortal souls. Before the terrified prey can flee to freedom, she is already halfway to the demonic beasts and their riders, whose fanged smiles and curved claws will welcome them before painful oblivion. A Fiend of Slaanesh is a bizarre demon, appearing as an unholy mixture of creatures. chimerical beings from warp-induced nightmares given physical shape. These hybrid creatures combine reptilian, insectoid and anthropomorphic characteristics. It has a segmented body, a tail covered in fine scales, and 2 pairs of humanoid legs that end in cloven hooves. Each fiend also has a pair of claw-tipped, gangly arms that it commonly uses as front legs. A fiend does not have the necessary intelligence to apply these arms as grasping appendages, although it can employ them as weapons to deadly effect. Yet these demons emit an unnatural, soporific fragrance so intoxicating it attracts and immobilizes anyone fated to become their prey. The narcotic energies of inconceivable pleasure they radiate intertwine the thoughts of mortals with the most jubilant dreams. As the victim succumbs to the all-pervading sweet state of euphoria, his limbs grow heavy while his mind wanders dreamily somewhere in another reality. It is then that the demons approach, moving like a gentle breeze, gaining physical form until the razor-sharp claws of a Slaanesh fiend tear their unresisting prey apart. Only a superhuman manifestation of willpower can offer the victim any hope of resisting the allure of Slaanesh's enchanting aura. And the mortal who somehow emerges alive from this nightmare will never be the same again, though they remember little of their ordeal, as their mind is unable to recall the dreams without plunging into madness. Yet they retain vague memories of writhing limbs and long lashing tongues, inhuman cries of delight and faces distorted by ecstatic agony. Worse still, the victims are constantly haunted by an overwhelming sense of saccharine suffocation, a cloying, seductive scent that sends dark desires into their hearts, and an irresistible yearning that lures mortal souls towards inevitable doom. In the warp, these demons roam and prowl through the numerous circles of the magnificent realm of Slaanesh, reveling in the warm, omnipresent glow of adoration for the Dark Prince. They entertain themselves by hunting each other, invading the winding forests or along the beautiful shores. Attacking and then retreating, the fiends meticulously dismember their prey with precise claw slashes, playing an eternity with those they pursue, until the final lethal blow causes the victim to convulse in ecstasy, simultaneously freed from the torment of agony. In addition to their sharp claws, each such demon possesses a barbed tail, which the fiend can whip with force enough to split ceramite armor, and its stinger contains a potent poison, forcing the victim to feel endless agony before death. During wars, these demons are summoned through horrifying rituals, and gathering in packs, they skulk near Slaanesh Daemonettes or run alongside the chariots of Slaanesh, dashing forward to strike unsuspecting victims. Fiends are unnaturally swift for their size. Moving oddly but swiftly, they overtake those who shun the intoxicating embraces of Slaanesh. As the demonic beasts close in on their target, they outshout one another, chanting a piercing melody, the obsessive dissonance intertwined with melodic riffs and pulsating bass rhythms. This melody, being a psychic scream, is audible not only in reality, but also resonates excellently in the warp, reaching the Palace of Pleasures. When Slaanesh stretches on his throne, his mind is captured by these distant hymns and lullabies. His eyes glaze over from the disturbing beauty of the music of his Daemonettes. For mortals, especially psychers, the call of Slaanesh demons is much less pleasant than for him, and even deadly. The rapidly changing frequency of sound can lead to eye injuries, nosebleeds, ruptured eardrums, and in rare cases, death. The Lady of the Voids is a name given by the Imperium to an unknown breed of Slaanesh demons that are often part of the vile host that trails its void ships as they travel established warp routes. However, unlike her lesser brethren, who can merely follow the ship ineffectually, a lady can prey upon a moment of weakness from a navigator or astropath in order to possess them and pass through their vessel's Geller field. The lady then manifests aboard the vessel by causing their possessed victim's body to burst apart, and the sight of the lady draped in torn flesh and entrails of their former crew member is enough to break the weak of will of anyone aboard the vessel. Her nightmarish physical appearance, though, makes it all the more easier to do so. The demon appears as a nightmarish merging of several female bodies about a vertical axis, faces, arms and mouths facing in different directions. while her torso is a hideous mix of woman, crab and bloated toad, whilst half of her arms end in spiny pincers. The most dangerous thing about the lady, however, is her constant siren call, which can make anyone hearing it go mad. As soon as she appears, the lady's many voices scream and moan this dreadful warp song that enraptures all who hear it. To them, the lady is a beauty to burn the soul, and their sanity flees as the warp song melts their mind and soon causes a foaming madness to take hold of the afflicted. Some crewmen begin mutilating themselves, others turn to destroy tech devices, murder one another, or struggle to open the seal gates and let in the void. Eventually, though, they all fall under the demon's will, and the lady gleefully sweeps through the stricken vessel at the head of a growing horde of the insane, set upon multiplying the suffering of her puppets in an orgy of destruction and death. Though their doom is almost certain, there are some measures the crew of a stricken vessel can do to save themselves. Of vital importance, of course, is to make sure they cannot hear the lady's siren song, plugging their ears, constantly yelling the Emperor's praises, or even sealing themselves within an insulated area, can help save them from the demon's voice. The most direct way, however, is to face the lady in battle and send her screaming back into the warp. Though they would have to face a maddened horde composed of their fellow crewmen to do so, ending the lady's song would save their vessel and free those who fell under the demon's power. Keeper of secrets. Better to pluck out your eyes and fight blind than to look upon such a vile, blasphemous monstrosity. Chaplain Trachis, White Scars, Chapter. The abominable yet beguiling entity of the warp, known as the Keeper of Secrets, also sometimes called the Bringer of Temptation and the Feaster of Pain, is a great demon of Slaanesh. The appearance of a Keeper of Secrets can greatly vary from one individual to another, unlike the great demons of other gods. Each of these immense and powerful beings is created according to the whimsical whims of its master, and is a unique expression of his mood and muse that came during the creation of the demon. Thus, some Keepers of Secrets have androgynous faces pierced with rings, while others have more bestial bovine and snouts, with fanged maws and shimmering forked tongues. All these repugnant creatures tower over a normal human several times, and all have eyes similar to precious stones, and heads crowned with magnificent horns. These beings move, like all marked by the Dark Prince, gliding forward, using the most winding and seductive movements, as though weightless. The Keeper of Secrets represents the pinnacle of the demon hierarchy of Slaanesh, the embodiment of the alluring power of pleasure. The mere presence of the Keeper of Secrets is enough to make even the most steadfast warrior fall to his knees in agony and ecstasy. For these demons, pain is simply another sensation to bestow upon others or to savour themselves when others inflict it. For any sensation is a blessing for the Keeper of Secrets. These powerful servants of Slaanesh feed on the fervent hope, despair, fear and terror that can be found in their enemies. The Keepers of Secrets are known for taking the noble ideals of others and turning them into the pursuit of selfish ambitions and self-gratification. The purpose of the existence of the Keeper of Secrets is to shatter dreams and embody nightmares, becoming more powerful from the escalating emotions of those who fight them. Enveloped in charms and mind-dulling musks, this monstrous demon masks its true form with supernatural allure. The seemingly minor and attractive figure of the Keeper of Secrets hides under charms a powerful muscular body, adorned with precious stones in which are enclosed the souls of its most powerful victims, and its razor-sharp claws are decorated with the brightest and sparkling polish. Like most great demons, the Keeper of Secrets is a very intelligent entity, whose sweet speeches and lazy gestures hide its true strength. Many devotees of the Dark Prince claim that these demons are the most charming of all immortals, and that even a single glance at them is enough for a person to cease resistance and lose any remaining willpower. This powerful demon of Slaanesh knows the most secret desires of every mortal being, and will use its knowledge to gain power over enemies, whispering seductive promises in their ears. Pain and pleasure have irrevocably mixed in the consciousness of the great demons of Slaanesh, making them addicted to the pleasure of battle to such an extent that this addiction has no equal in the warp, nor beyond its bounds. Keepers of secrets are dispatched by the Dark Prince to battle only when other attempts fail, for violence is but a minor part of Slaanesh's nature. Only when sheer, uncompromising force, the only remaining path to achieve the desired, does Slaanesh entrust his great demons to show it in abundance. Keepers of secrets derive sadistic pleasure from all acts of violence and torture, perceiving torturous and painful killings merely as another form of creative self-expression. The demons enjoy feeding on the strong emotions of mortals, as they experience primal terror, while their comrades are torn apart in whirlwinds of blood and explosions by the keepers of secrets who prepare to kill them as well. The demons' fine and terribly strong limbs move swiftly in rapid strikes as they gut their opponents, adorning everything around with intricate blood patterns and scattering parts of their enemies' bodies as if weaving a terrifying tapestry. Desperate pleas for mercy and the frenzied battle cries of warriors mad with blood, resonant music to the ears of these great demons, a delightful opera glorifying Slaanesh. For there are innumerable ways to kill, and a keeper of secrets strives to know them all. On the battlefield, keepers of secrets are rarely encountered alone. They are invariably accompanied by packs of Daemonettes. They leap and dance on the battlefields, singing praises to their master and bringing death to the armies of mortals. Daemonettes mock and tease commanders and champions until the battlefield is covered with the corpses of twitching dead. And then appears the great demon, and true slaughter and bloodshed begin. It is said that a keeper of secrets is not only an unmatched warrior, but also possesses secret knowledge of many mystical arts. Rumor has it they can hear everything spoken in any place, in any dimension. And apparently it is because of this ability that they have earned their name, Keepers of Secrets. Demons were also known to exchange their knowledge for gifts and services. Utilizing the secrets at their disposal, they can weave complex spells of disorientation and mystification, leading the weak to their inevitable doom and giving the strong foolish tasks. A keeper of secrets is capable of intruding into the thoughts and feelings of their enemies, penetrating through their psychic defenses and sending false visions of glory, inflating their egos and igniting their most secret desires to lead them astray from the true path. Corrupting those warriors who are pure of heart and possess noble intentions, the greatest of their skills, for they inevitably turn every aspiration for glory into a sacrifice on the altar of the twisted will of the Lord of Pleasures. Shalaxi Helbane. The keeper of secrets named Shalaxi, Helbane, also referred to as the monarch of the hunt, is one of the greatest servants of Slaanesh, whose favourite prey are the champions and great demons of the other chaos gods. Shalaxi is the living embodiment of the eternal rivalry between the Dark Prince and the Blood God. According to legends, she was created by the Lord of Pleasure from his own essence, to kill the voracious bloodthirsters with contemptuous ease, for nothing is sweeter for Slaanesh than victory over the raging, dog-headed rival. Shalaxi has killed countless great demons, as well as space marines, champions, and any other chosen of the dark gods who became powerful enough or simply irritated Slaanesh. And if numerous rumors are to be believed, Helbane even managed to strike down the dreaded bloodthirster Scarbrand, one of the greatest champions of Khorne. However, 600 Terran years before the formation of the Great Rift, the Keeper of Secrets was banished into the Warp by the Grey Knights, causing Slaanesh to rage and imprison the demon in the Palace of Punishments. Over time, the Dark Prince decided that Shalaxi had atoned for her transgression and sent the demon to prevent the resurrection of Inead. Helbane appeared on Belial IV before the battle for Iyanden and stole the fifth sword of Morai Heg before the Inari could reach it. Shalaxi hid the artifact where no Eldari could reach it, namely at the throne of Slaanesh itself. Due to the sword's unreachability, the Inari's plan to resurrect their god was thwarted. But Shalaxi did not intend to stop there. Gathering an army in which even Sileski was noticed, the Keeper of Secrets ventured into the webway to end the threat once and for all. Using her powers, Helbane was able to track down Yvraine in the many twists of the webway's labyrinths. After a long pursuit, Shalaxi finally met Yvraine on the planet Iathglas. By that time, the emissary of Inead had already gathered a huge army from various normally opposing Eldari factions. In the final battle, Shalaxi fought practically all of the most powerful warriors of the Elder race, among whom were the Incarn, the Vizarch, Jainzar, Lilith Hesperax, Solitaire and Ivrain herself. At that moment, many thought that the powerful Keeper of Secrets was defeated, however. Her presence on Iathglass was merely a projection, real enough to amuse and test the combat skills of the Eldari. Before finally dissipating, Shalaxi gloated, telling Ivrain that the Inari are just pawns in Slaanesh's grand game, and that when the time comes, the demon would return to kill her once and for all, and no amount of Enid's help would suffice. The Ruination of Imperfect Beauty is the demon who takes great pleasure in corrupting schemers, artists, and craftsmen. He creates cults from weak people who strive for perfection and strengthens himself with the corruption he sows in their souls. The Ruination is but a whisper in the air, an invisible plague to most, visible only to a few. Those who would battle against it must draw it out by destroying its cult, or wait for it to appear in order to feast. Then, the Ruination can be expelled through the forces of a blessed weapon and prayer. Unlike other demons, the Ruination does not seek to achieve its goals through force. Rather, it prefers to cajole and bargain with mortals, and of course to manipulate them with ease. Rumour has it that the Ruination of Imperfect Beauty emerged in the world of Pleasure Kinnog at the beginning of the 8th century of the 41st millennium. The sinners of Kinnog, indulging in illicit pleasures, created extravagant works of art and intricate conspiracies. But they were merely a pale and repulsive reflection of the corrupt world of the hive city Malfi, which grew on the surface of a demonic world like a garden in which courtly love might bloom. Total corruption and grave sins were able to summon the Ruination from the warp into reality, to complete the corruption of noble souls. The true form of the Ruination is an off-putting mix of toad, crab, and chubby woman. However, in its true form, the demon rarely reveals itself until its plans are in their final phase. But even then, the Ruination of Imperfect Beauty hides behind the ravishing appearance of a wicked temptress. Although it is a powerful demon, all it does is quietly create cults out of idle artists, lovers, or conspirators. The Ruination is constantly communicating with its servants, whispering inspiration through dreams and hopes for the creation of perfect works. Perfect paintings, perfect love, perfect conspiracies. All participants in the creation are linked within the cult, but each nearly perfect painting or conspiracy is marred by one deep flaw and will never be perfect. The Ruination derives pleasure from its servants' endeavours and the resulting emotions of disappointment, anger and ecstasy. It is a harsh overseer obsessed with its manipulations and the arrangement of others' lives. But in the end, when a mortal has exhausted themselves, the Ruination gathers its entire cult and appears in its true form to destroy it and feast on the souls of its members, then moves on in search of new gullible fools. In the numerous volumes of the Schola Impermissus, one can find many descriptions of the nature of this demon. Thus, the Ruination of Imperfect Beauty fanatically detests any incompetence to such an extent that low-quality goods or unskilled craftsmen can act as talismans, and proven accusations of imperfection can even lead to the demon's expulsion. Herald of Slaanesh. I can show you a portal that can take you to a special place. There you will experience pleasure without conscience, delights without boundaries. There you will find wealth without working, gratifications beyond count. Won't you come with me? Siren Song of Shariz, Deacon of Lust. Of all the Chaos gods, it is Slaanesh who most resembles practically any mortal ruler, possessing similar desires and customs. Like mortals, Slaanesh surrounds itself with a court that accompanies and entertains it everywhere. This court consists of both immortals and immoral mortals who enjoy great favour, as long as they are honoured to bask in the presence of Slaanesh. The more a Daemonette is to the Dark Prince's liking, the more privileged she is, and the closer she is allowed to approach his throne. Only the chosen among all the lesser demons of Slaanesh are given his blessing and a portion of divine power. These servants are the swiftest and deadliest of Slaanesh's courtesans, beings of incredible grace and terrifying cruelty, known as the Heralds of Slaanesh. These Daemonettes are more powerful than their sisters, and are allowed to rule freely in the Palace of Pleasure. The greatest of their kind are even honoured to rise to the throne of Slaanesh, where they feed their twisted patron with delicacies and caress his body with their oil-slicked claws. When not around their master's throne, the Heralds of Slaanesh serve the god in other ways. Primarily, the servants act as lieutenants in the legions of the Dark Prince, leading cavalries of lesser demons and obeying only the desires of the head of each legion, namely the Keeper of Secrets. There are a whole range of titles that the Heralds of Slaanesh bear, such as Infernal Enrapturous, Abyss of Avarice, High Bacchante of Glut, or Artisan of Pain. However, under whatever name they are known, any Herald of Slaanesh is a beacon of decadence, and wherever she goes she incites a hedonistic frenzy among the other minions of the Dark Prince, inspiring them to new heights of debauchery. For them, battle is merely a continuous dance, in which demons can be both experienced choreographers and magnificent dancers. On the battlefield, they use their psychic powers to deprive enemies of senses and make them succumb to their base desires, before the heralds deftly unleash their razor-sharp limbs on them, while some of them go into battle on the seeker chariots. Despite the heralds being mighty warriors and leaders, it is these corrupt creatures that the Lord of Excess trusts with more subtle assignments. For example, acting as temptresses in various circles of torment surrounding the Palace of Pleasure, or seducing weak-willed mortals and converting them to the faith of their god. For like all demons of Slaanesh, the heralds are capable of conducting their affairs quite delicately, as sometimes the commands of the Dark Prince require. Thus, it is common for a herald to establish cults of Slaanesh, bribe planetary rulers, and secretly assassinate various inquisitors, high-ranking military officers, and imperial commanders while they peacefully sleep in their quarters. Through promises of glory and self-realization, the herald transforms the aspirations and ambitions of its victim into obsession, paranoia, and madness, luring the mortal onto a path of self-destruction and fulfilling the desires of the Dark Prince. The Mask of Slaanesh, also known as simply the Mask, is the most infamous demon and herald of Slaanesh that has ever vexed the sentient beings of the galaxy. Once favoured by Slaanesh as one of his dancers and chief servants, she was banished by her master and cursed to dance both in the materium and the immaterium. However, the Mask turned her curse into a powerful weapon, forcing any being seduced by her hypnotic dance to join her performance until the unfortunate soul collapses dead from exhaustion. According to legend, the Mask, once the chief servant of Slaanesh, would usually brush the Dark Prince's shining hair and anoint it with fragrant balms, and when his mood was sombre, the Mask danced to dispel his gloom, delighting her god with the most dazzling acrobatic displays. And yet, despite all Slaanesh's indulgence, the Mask ultimately became the most despised of all the Prince of Pleasure's servants. During the eternal disputes and wars in the realm of chaos among the gods, known to some as the Great Game, it happened that Tzeentch deceitfully dragged Slaanesh into an uneven war against Khorne and Nurgle. It was a grueling series of battles that ended in total defeat for the Dark Prince and his subsequent humiliation by his sworn enemies. Seeing her master's dismal mood, the Mask dared to lighten his heart with the most energetic and sparkling dance in all of history. Where once her leaps and pirouettes brought laughter and joy, now the hardened heart of Slaanesh saw them only as mockery, and every made movement in his view was a calculated strike against his already wounded pride. Slaanesh's wrath reached a boiling point, and the Prince of Pleasure vented his frustration on his beloved servant, branding her a traitor and placing a curse upon her, declaring that, if she so wished to dance, she would now dance forever. Such was the Mask's fate, an eternal dance and nothing more. In the courts of Slaanesh's heart she pirouettes for other demons, charming them with her sinuous movements until they are so enraptured that they no longer can move or speak. She dances too at the gates of Khorne, mocking the bloodletters who can only growl in response to her audacity. The Mask also dances in the mortal worlds across the galaxy, ensnaring all who witness her dance. Where a mortal indulges their sensation, where excess overcomes restraint, the Mask leads these heedless mortals to their doom. When she enacts plays about the glorious history of Slaanesh, his fate, and his most unholy conquests, Her golden mask shimmers and changes, matching the roles of the characters she portrays in a manner eerily resembling the performances of the Harlequin troops. The performance of the mask is so captivating that all who see it feel compelled to join in her act. Immortal demons and mortals alike sense this call in their hearts and are powerless to resist it, joining the show and dancing as if they had rehearsed their role for an eternity. In the dance of dreaming, where the character of the slumbering prince awaits to be born, the mask's troupe is lulled into a lethargic trance, whilst in the dance of death, a reenactment of one of Slaanesh's great victories over Khorne, the cast leap and flail and claw at their eyes and throats. Consumed with ecstasy and agony from the mask's aura, they will dance to death in blissful oblivion, using the last of their life force in their dying breath, just to not disrupt the rhythm and to keep pace with her twirls and somersaults. It is known that sometimes the mask unexpectedly appears on battlefields across the galaxy. She danced under the screams of those slain by Khorne's bloodletters, and pirouetted under the monotonous march of Nurgle's plague-bearers, being a beacon of grace among the brutal and bloated followers of the Lord of Decay. However, most often, the mask will appear alongside the cavalcade's legions of excess of her master's excess. If she could follow her own will, that's where she would choose to stay. But Slaanesh, still angry, continues to refuse lifting the curse from her. Thus, the mask continues to dance wherever her capricious whims and the curses of the Dark Prince take her. The Seeker Chariot of Slaanesh, also known as the Machinery of Blissful Pain, is a demonic construct in the form of a great war chariot used by the demons who serve Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure. Drawn by demonic beasts, known as steeds of Slaanesh and driven by Daemonettes, these creations are often seen in battles of the Great Game, which the ruinous powers play for dominance over the realm of chaos. When the demonic steeds accelerate the Seeker Chariot to full speed, swirling figures scorch the air with dazzling streaks of the brightest and most insane colours. The metallic axles of the chariot screech in disharmony, akin to the screams of tormented souls, a terrible cacophony which howls between the singing of Daemonettes and the rhythmic cries of the steeds of Slaanesh. There are also variants of the Seeker Chariot known as Hellflayers that ride across the plains of Slaanesh realm while their blades cut and tear flesh into pieces to be devoured by the supernatural flora. Outwardly, they present a mix of nausea-inducing spokes, claws, mauling blades, and hook-like whips. Just like the ancient chariots from the Legends of Terror, the heads of the beasts that pull the Seeker Chariot and Hellflayer are armoured and horned, while their malevolent tongues are always extended, attempting to snatch any hint of emotion from the air. There exists an even more powerful variant of the Seeker Chariot, known as the Exalted Seeker Chariot, a massive construct bearing 4 Daemonettes and drawn by 4 steeds of Slaanesh, not to mention a far greater number of blades and spikes. The Exalted Seeker Chariots seek the enemy everywhere, and where opponents are most numerous, they crash into them with hysterical self-sacrifice. Though the bodies of the Dark Prince's enemies perish under the wheels, their unfortunate souls live on much longer. Indeed, the blades of the chariot deeply incise into the spiritual essence of their victims, dragging the remnants of their souls ever deeper into the metal from which it is forged. A demon prince of Slaanesh. Mortals known as the favourites of sensation, chosen children, and blessed by the flesh, were once selected and received the highest reward for any living follower of one of the dark gods of chaos, the right to eternally serve him as a demon prince. However, each god requires something unique from their follower before bestowing such a generous gift. For example, a follower of the brutal Khorne must kill in the name of their god, reaping skulls and drinking the blood of their enemies until their lord takes notice. These straightforward actions are the same for all who serve Khorne. But for those who wish to enjoy the embrace of the Lord of Pleasure, the path to greatness is less clear. Many roads are open for exploration, and many more are hidden, awaiting the impatient and curious investigation by devoted followers of Slaanesh. All one needs to do is choose one and find a way to follow it far enough until the gaze of the Dark Prince falls upon the wanderer. Once a mortal feels the gaze of their master, they must continue to press on his senses, crossing any boundaries permitted and limitations imposed by society and their physical form. A devotee of Slaanesh must entertain the Prince of Pleasure until they are considered not only unique but worthy of the reward, for uniqueness alone is not enough. The touch of the Dark Prince has ended in a ghastly and brutal death for many mortals, during which the Seeker's body was distorted and took on an extremely unnatural form. All ruinous powers are capricious and are unlikely to generously share mutations with their followers. However, the indulgent attitude of Slaanesh towards all living things makes his touch particularly risky. Quite often a mortal who achieved greatness worthy of Slaanesh's attention died or became a mindless spawn of chaos, simply because the Dark Prince was not in the mood or preoccupied with something else. Yet those who still manage to receive the greatest gift of all realize their purpose without death and are reborn as a demon prince. The nature of Slaanesh, however, is such that even this grand achievement is more the beginning of the path than its end. The mortal who has attained demonhood must continue to impress their lord, do more for him than before, and try to become first among equals. For example, if a newly emerged demon prince concocted an elixir so sweet to taste that its mere scent compels people to drink it incessantly until they willingly die from indulgence, he must find a way to corrupt worlds so their inhabitants decide to poison their drinking water supplies with such a delightful yet deadly mixture. Having accomplished this, he must refine his creation, perhaps altering it to leave each victim with a wistful smile on their face. Service is infinite and eternal. However, a single failure and the exalted mortal becomes a spawn of chaos or something even worse. For not even a mighty demon prince can evade punishment for disappointing Slaanesh. Sil-eske. Once at the court of the Dark Prince, one of his heralds, Sil-Lewdtongue, was avoided and scorned, primarily for her controversial attachment to those she was supposed to corrupt. However, when she noticed one of the mortal slaves named Eski, who was fighting in the gladiatorial arenas of Slaanesh's gardens in the realm of chaos, she couldn't have imagined that her fate would soon change completely. The mortal proved extremely receptive to the herald's powers, resulting in his rise from a mere gladiator to the champion of the arena in a very short time. And it was no mere coincidence, for he obeyed the herald in everything and was very submissive. But demonic envy couldn't simply watch the rise of a mere mortal and servant of Slaanesh, so they cruelly killed Sil. However, the self-sacrifice of her servant Eski allowed the demon to reincarnate in her previous form, bypassing the laws of the Immaterium. In turn, she also thanked him. Utilizing all her power and with permission from Slaanesh, Sil rebirthed Eski, and he arose not as a mortal, but as a demon prince. Yet, the other courtiers of the Dark Prince did not recognize him as an equal, remembering him as merely a contemptible mortal. Everything changed when the blood legions of Khorne decided to storm the Palace of Pleasure. United, Sil and Eski fought side by side to protect the gardens before the entrance to the Lord of Pleasure's palace. Together, they became an unstoppable force. While Sil, with nimble and swift strikes, distracted and disarmed enemies, Eski crushed them with his mighty and sweeping blows of his enormous axe. Once the battle was concluded, and the legions of the Blood God were defeated, Slaanesh personally rewarded her loyal and courageous servants, binding their bodies and souls into one entity, which received the name Sil-eske, the Vengeful Allegiance. After another elevation, this pair of demons stood at the forefront of the Dark Prince's expansion, and now leads the Forsaken Hedonists in the struggle against injustice and chaotic tyranny. Unlike other followers of Slaanesh, they adhere to the concept of egalitarianism. Thus, in their ranks, both mortals who have sold their souls and wayward demons of the Dark Prince have equal power and authority, fighting together as if for a moment they themselves become the Vengeful Allegiance. Despite the fact that more refined followers of the Dark Prince consider Sil-eske and their minions to be wanderers and outcasts, they have increasingly drawn maniacal inspiration from their actions, striving to emulate the example of Vengeful Allegiance, legions of excess. When the souls of mortals need to be forcefully ripped from their bodies rather than taken voluntarily, or some surreal territory in the Immaterium is under attack, Slaanesh summons his demonic armies, the legions of excess. Despite the fact that the forces of Slaanesh cannot compare with the raw power of Khorne's cohorts, the resilience of Nurgle, or the supernatural might of Tzeentch's warriors. They possess unmatched, insane speed and lethality, both in the immaterium and in real space. Being the god of whims and unholy fantasies, the Dark Prince encourages personal ambition among his generals, the keepers of secrets, the dark heart of a legion of excess. There are also cases where the legions of excess were led by demon princes, for Slaanesh respects the greatest of his once mortal champions, perhaps more than any of his brother gods. The next step in the legion's hierarchy is the Heralds of Slaanesh, each of whom leads one of the legion's divisions, known as a cavalcade. There are a total of 6 formations in each legion, as this sacred number is most often associated with Slaanesh. While some generals of the Dark Prince are obsessed with commanding one type of demonic legion, most will change formations depending on mood or necessity. Each legion of excess varies greatly in composition and in the tactics they employ. The Flayer legions are given over to wanton destruction, and their many Daemonettes take great pleasure in the act. The Hunter legions are unmatched masters of rapid killing and are built around swiftly moving cavalry of chariots. They are ideal for tracking down specific prey, as Slaanesh always gets what she wants. And the hunt is one of the oldest pleasures in the galaxy, amusing Slaanesh and her offspring all the more. The flamboyant Glamiatrix legions are the most sorcerous, relying heavily upon psychic powers and mesmerism. They are rarely seen among the frenzied demons on the front lines. More often, they serve as a secret weapon that can break the course of a battle, subjugating the weak minds or creating mirages amidst the battlefield. The Terror legions are the striking force of the Dark Prince, specializing in intricate, bloody manifestations of combat. They are infamously known for unleashing a psychic storm on the senses of mortals and demons, which can cause the faint-hearted enemies to run or beg for mercy. They are creators of nightmares and horrors. In battle against them, you will plunge into a sea of tentacles and echoes. Not all can withstand the psychic pressure. The legions of eternal punishments have no specialty, but rather summon all aspects of Slaanesh, mixing magic and temptation together with their refined martial prowess. They serve as the core backbone of the forces of the sinister deity. However, perhaps the strangest of all the legions of excess are the Kurante legions. For them, battle is merely a dance. The bright demons of this legion whirl around each other, slaying the enemy with whimsically precise movements. While they lack the speed and strength compared to other legions, the elegance and creativity with which each kill is performed often earns them the favor of Slaanesh, which he would never bestow upon a boring, banal slaughter, even if more effective. It is from this legion that the most ascensions come. And it is here that the whimsical creatures are born, who flit through the warp in search of lost souls. The main part of the troops in most cavalcades consist of lesser demons, known as Daemonettes, servants of the Lord of Pleasure. Cavalcades of those legions inclined towards speed or striking power, such as the Hunters or Terror legions, often include a large number of Seeker cavalry, Seeker chariots and Hellflayers in support of Daemonette packs. Any of the legion types can include the demonic beasts known as Fiends, but they appear in greatest numbers in Glamiatrix and Terror legions and are infrequent in Kurante legions. This whole machine of screeching, howling and writhing bodies rushes across the numerous battlefields, instilling in the minds of mortals an endless terror and fear of the end, which they may meet in the claws of these creatures. Slaanesh is still young, but what does time mean when you are in the warp? He sits upon his throne and awaits the moments when the last soul of Ealdari will quench his hunger. And if this does not happen, and the thirst does not pass, then humanity will become the new favorite toy in the Slaanesh hands. The pursuit, the desire for perfection, and even any other good thoughts can lead to an unknown place. Slaanesh is close, so place your hands on the table and remember, even under the blanket she still sees you. She knows everything.